Welcome to the Security Today podcast. I'm your host, Uncle Baer, and finally, we're back at it for another Bid2Bank. I know it's been a little bit. It's been a little of a dry spell or a dry season on the Bid2Banks, and I might have yelled at you once or twice on the news and highlights reel, but I did make sure to get back in the booth for a Bid2Bank with none other than Vinny Peone. Is that how you say it?
It is. You nailed it.
Oh. You know, I do that like every episode. I ask, is it this after we've started recording? So I'll try to start remembering that. But I'm here with Vinny today from Eastern Security Services, and he's going to be introducing himself in a second. But I just wanted to remind you about the Bid2Bank, where we bring on people who are either running a small integrator business or they're in the know enough to get on the episode and bring what they're bringing. This one, I am catering a little bit to that marketing side. I know that a lot of times in our security service industry, marketing is not the best, and some websites still look like they're hanging out in 1998. But we are bringing it here today with a marketing expert from Eastern Security Services, and we're going to just talk it up. We will go through everything between the bid and the bank, but this will lean heavy on the marketing side. I know that's sometimes where we need some help. So we're just going to chop it up today with Vinny. I met Vinny on LinkedIn, and it's only been a good relationship from the meeting point. So I'm excited to have him on. Vinny, go ahead and introduce yourself, maybe a little bit about the company and maybe a little bit about what you do in the company.
Absolutely. So as Uncle Baer or Brother Baer mentioned, I am Vinny Peone. I'm the digital content manager for Eastern Security Services in Syracuse, New York. We were established in 1976. We do burglary, alarm systems, fire, intercom, access control, cameras, and also mobile surveillance trailers. We actually coined Big Red, so that's been a huge addition to our arsenal this year, as well as weapons detection systems as well. I've been here since November 2021, so I'll be coming up on 3 years this year. I had about a year prior security experience as well with rapid response monitoring as an account executive, so I got to see the alarm monitoring side of the systems that we put in as well. And before this, I had sales and marketing experience for about 5 years or so.
Okay. Awesome. And so, so have you always been in marketing?
No, not necessarily. So when I was I went to University of Buffalo, and I was a personal trainer there, and they kind of gave you, leads. And this was not at Buffalo. This was at a World Gym down there. They started you out with a couple leads and a couple clients, but you really had to market yourself to find more clients there. And a lot of it was word of mouth, just walking up to people in the gym. But a big part of it was social media marketing and trying to draw people in that way. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth with marketing, was getting used to that. Like any millennial, I grew up in front of a screen, so it's always just kind of come natural, the social media aspect of it. But I grew that personal training business from the 1-2 clients that they gave me to start with to I had over 100 sessions every week, and I was making serious money as a college senior. So that's kind of where I got into marketing, and then every role that I found myself in over the years, I've gravitated towards that a little bit, even if it wasn't necessarily my title. When I worked at Baer Motors, when I sold cars for quite a while, I was heavily involved in our marketing there and managing our website and doing a ton of social media work as well. So it's something I've done I'm flattered when you call me an expert. I've done it for a number of years here, but I've never had any actual formal education in it other than just various trainings.
Yeah, that's okay. And especially with this listener base, I feel like there's a lot of experts out there, and they learn from doing, not necessarily from being told or taught. So that fits right in, no problem. Eastern Security Services, how big is your shop? Like, how many guys are you running?
So we have, I just had to look this up the other day too. It's 32 or 33 employees. Actually, we just 34 employees now, and about a dozen of those were within the last year. So I think it was May of 2023 now, we announced that we were expanding to Rochester, New York. We hired a general manager out there, Jeff Cooper, who actually celebrated his 1-year anniversary here this week. We just had a big post for him. We expanded out to Rochester, and then shortly after, we started hiring a team in Buffalo. And we've had a shop in Corning for a number of years as well. So we have 34 employees spread out between the four cities. And it's been rapid expansion over the last year, going into Western New York. We've had a ton of jobs, a ton of success out that way. And we're really starting to grow our team out there. It's been fantastic.
That's awesome. So, when we run from Bid2Bank, we usually start right before the bid. It's just Bid2Bank sounded better on the segment piece, not marketing to bank, But from the marketing standpoint and sales, what form of marketing have you had maybe the most success with in your let's just keep it in the security. I almost expanded it, but let's say in the security industry, what form of marketing have you had the most success with?
So I can't speak for the entire, nearly 50 years of the company, obviously, because it's longer than I've been alive. Before me, I know they dabbled a little bit. We had a billboard once or twice, along the major highway here, one of them. They heavily invested in the SEO on our website, and they actually completely revamped the website since I've been here. That was before I got into the digital content management. For me, I think the LinkedIn marketing has been the most effective. I might be biased because just recently we actually had a lead on the mobile surveillance trailers. That was the direct result of someone who had seen one of our LinkedIn ads about it. And we were the first dealer to send that specific camera trailer to New Jersey, and we actually had 2 of them go out, and that was directly because of one of our LinkedIn ads. But I find that to be the most effective because, most of our commercial clients are on LinkedIn, at least, one of the higher ups there, whether it's, the CEO, the CTO, someone in the IT department. So it's a good way for them to see our company updates, our product offerings. And then, most of the commercial clients that we would like to do business with, a lot of them are on LinkedIn as well. And LinkedIn is more geared for sales and business in general. So if you invest in LinkedIn Premium, you can, have better search functions. You can drop more, LinkedIn mail messages to someone who's outside of your network. It's there's a lot you can do with it, and I like all the platforms we're on, but LinkedIn is definitely our strongest one. We've grown it from about 200 followers to 1,800 in the last year that I've been doing this, and I've grown my own network from around the same to 3,400 followers. So it's definitely taken off, and that's the one that we definitely get the most feedback from our clients. And as far as new business, it's been LinkedIn.
Yeah. I've had a little bit of a run here on the last 3 or 4 podcasts I've recorded. This has kind of come up, the networking piece of it has kind of come up during conversation. And so I feel as if you say, I've also grown my followers and I've grown Eastern Security followers, and it's that type of networking that actually led right to this podcast. So clearly it's working,
Absolutely.
right? You are networking with people, you're getting in front of other people's eyes and stuff like that. I want to retouch on the project that you talked about where you got one of your red trailers. So first of all, explain that a little bit, because the guys and girls listening to this podcast are definitely security heads, and I've seen a couple of your ads for Big Red, but go ahead and explain exactly what that is, and then maybe detail a little bit about that first rollout to New Jersey and what that looked like.
So Big Red is our mobile surveillance trailer, and we'd been interested in doing this for a while, and obviously, they've been trending in the industry for some time. When I went to ISC East, I was told to do a little bit of recon, see what there was there for, mobile surveillance trailers. And then shortly after ISC East, Cooper McDonnell, our company president, got in touch with Jake Voll, who anyone listening to this podcast more than likely knows, especially if you're on LinkedIn. And he was able.
I got to get him on here.
You absolutely do, for sure. But he was able to facilitate us, with getting our first mobile surveillance trailer, and we had it brought out to the shop here, and we had the whole, rundown of how it works. This one in particular, it's big and it's red. It has 4 PTZ cameras on it. It's got a 120 decibel, megaphone on it coming down. It's got a backup generator on board. Just about any possible place we could have splurged on this to make this a premium option, we did. And when it came here, we were just all, in awe over the thing. And we had to come up with a name for it, and Big Red just seemed fitting, and then that kind of took off. But we had it, we took it around, around town one day, did a photo shoot with it, and, let some, prospective, clients on it take a look at it as well. And our original one that we got is still here in Syracuse, on a residential account, actually. And then we kind of assumed, once, we'd stick with that one, and then, as needed, we'd kind of move it around, once there was another need for it. But we ended up having someone with an immediate need who needed, had several construction sites, and they wanted it, immediately. They already knew Cooper, but they didn't know that we did mobile surveillance trailers until they saw the LinkedIn posting on it. And like you said, I've done several of them, and I got to pick their brain. I'm not sure what exact one it was. If it was the Lord of the Rings one, where the Big Red stands in as the Balrog. If it was the the Monty Python and the Holy Grail one. I'm not sure what it was they saw, but it could have been the Big Red Tinder profile they saw too. Really, I don't know. So.
Yeah, and I wanna detail that just for a second, because for those of you listening, like, he's not just making this up. This is one of Vinny's marketing strategies, and it gets a lot of laughs, a lot of likes, which I'm sure pushes it into more people's LinkedIn feed. But you are really good at stitching in pop culture into kind of the items and the products that you're selling. Can you tell us I know this is off question a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit about, is there a strategy? Do you just use your intuition? How do you approach using pop culture to sell security products?
So when I was 13, my dad bet me that I couldn't go a full day without referencing a movie or a TV show. I made it about 30 minutes, and then we doubled down to Double or Nothing, and then I lasted about 10 seconds before I accidentally immediately dropped another TV show reference. I grew up, I watched a lot of TV, a lot of movies, and a lot of people have told me that I process things in like movie references. So anytime I see most things, mentally I'm thinking up a movie that's similar to, or some kind of reference. You'll see a lot of my comments on LinkedIn are GIFs from movies and TV shows. So like I'll be watching something with the missus, and there'll be a camera scene or an access control scene in it, and I immediately I have to post this. But anytime I see something in the field, I'm processing it in some kind of movie reference, and I wish there was some kind of strategy to it that I could elaborate on here. But it's just I'm a connoisseur of film. So
now let me ask you, so approaching things like that is probably a little bit out of the wheelhouse of most security business owners who are more than likely over 50, right? So how do you get to a point where you could maybe, like, how did you convince your owners that this was a good way to sell, or at least to give you a shot at it to show if it worked or if it didn't?
So and I actually kind of started to mention this already, when we announced last year that we were expanding to Rochester, or at least internally when we announced it, I didn't have any social media at that point. Nothing. I had a deactivated LinkedIn that I used to find this job. But once I got the job, I deactivated it because, I was like, oh, I'm not job hunting. I have no reason to have it. That was how I saw it at that point. Once I found out we were expanding to Rochester, I reactivated it thinking, okay, maybe I could reach out to some people I went to college or high school with, and I can help us find leads in Rochester. And then, as I started kind of looking around in the security industry, I was finding all kinds of other influencers out there, many of whom, you were one of them, but many of whom as well. Obviously, Benji, Phil, Mia, Trevor, all the people we're usually, tagging and stuff. Chad Cooper, just some real powerhouses as far as, security industry influencers. And I realized that, they're not just there finding leads, they're creating this, awesome content. And, a lot of it was, it's hilarious. Anytime you can take a meme, like a classic meme, and make it applicable to, really any product, but specifically security, which historically has been kind of, more conservative, reserved, marketing. So I honestly, a lot of the stuff, it was, in my wheelhouse for humor. So I just started doing my own stuff. I think my first one that really took off was I replaced a Commander 3000 keypad. And I posted a picture of that next to the Indiana Jones It Belongs in a Museum GIF, and it took off. I had like 50 reactions to it, which for me, at that point, that was big for me on LinkedIn. And I realized that there was definitely a market for, funny posts and for security related topics. So I kind of kept rolling with that. And as I was growing my own network, over time, and I say over time, this all transpired within, like a month. Cooper saw what I was doing on my own LinkedIn and said, hey, would you have any interest in doing this on our company LinkedIn? And it started out more reserved on the company one. I'd post a picture of a camera that we put up because we do a lot of pretty impressive installs. We find ourselves in some pretty scenic places out here. So I think one of the first ones I did was a 360 camera and a Vidge on top of it, just a monstrous light pole that they actually had to extend to make it even further up because they just wanted this sweeping view of this entire lot. So I posted a picture of that, of me up on the boom lift, working on it. And it's kind of started out with stuff like that. And I think Cooper was seeing, the stuff that I was posting and resharing from other influencers and realized that a lot of the funny posts were definitely drawing more traffic. So it was September, we decided to start doing more videos, and we did our first, kind of big video on work from home operators in, for alarm monitoring centers. And that one really took off, and then we kind of hammered that for a while. We still sprinkle those in every now and then, in addition to all the videos we've done for Big Red. So it's really just growing my own network and starting there, and I guess showing that was working and that there was a market for it. And then, we have a very open door environment here. If you have an idea, you go right to any of the managers and bring it to them. And, if it's good, if it's going to be good for the business, they'll let you run with it. So again, he trusted me to start doing that, and then it kind of just took off, and then they, formally made me the digital content manager.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that you are kind of touching on a piece that needs to be, when it comes to marketing, it's kind of a tricky game. You're kind of walking a balance there, especially when you start to personalize that content or you start to inject humor into it. It can get kind of tricky. Are you going to cross the line with this, or is this going to, look maybe not as good from the light of professionalism? And so what are some of the measures that you implement to make sure that you're not, because I feel like one guy is going to be a Dan in a van, and he's going to go listen to this and be like, oh yeah, I should do that. And he's going to post something extremely crude. Right. And then he's going to email me and be like, your podcast told me. No, but what are some measures that you implement to make sure that you're staying within a zone of like that friendly, likable stuff that's gaining attraction?
You need to have a good team and a good approval process for it. And for me, I typically, I've done this for a while, as far as, sharing things on social media. And I think, our generation, we're a little bit more in tune with things that could possibly be taken as offensive or inappropriate.
Sure.
So I think we have a little bit of an unfair advantage there compared to someone who maybe is in their 50s and they just decide to start, run with social media marketing. But regardless, for either demographic, you need to have a good approval process for it. It can't just be, one person with executive authority be like, yep, let's send this to the internet. So for me, anytime I type something up, I send it to Cooper, and then he's the one who ultimately approves it or, says it's no good. And if he's on the fence about it, we'll send it to more people from that. So we'll send it to, the management team. If it pertains to a specific department, I'll send it to that department head to get their blessing on it. We'll make any changes, and this is all just done over text. We don't have any formal software for it or anything like that. It's casual.
Sure.
And that's worked for us pretty well. And you're right, there is a balance there. And Jake Voll actually said recently in the call that you and I were both on that, I kind of walk that line right between appropriate and inappropriate. And I think he said I was a master at that, which, I take a lot of pride in that. But I'm constantly, wondering, thinking about, is this going too far or not? And I think I've done a good job. I've reserved quite a bit on some of them there, because obviously not every movie reference, as funny as they can be, not all of them are appropriate for LinkedIn or to represent a company. And it's the way it is. The last thing we want to do is offend anyone. So
yeah, no, and I would agree. You do a really good job at that. So what sort of tools do you use in your digital marketing? Do you plan or schedule posts? Do you build any sort of maybe forward thinking, like this is like the remote monitoring? You had that as kind of a campaign. That's the word I was looking for. Do you build like campaigns and stuff like that?
This is going to bug a lot of the type A people out there. Like, I'm pretty sure Phil has like a specific, agenda where like, everything's kind of lined up like week to week. And I know a lot of content creators have the stuff planned well ahead of time. I kind of just, I'm kind of winging it right now in that regard. I typically, because I talk to I do installations, and, most days I meet with Cooper to kind of go over marketing stuff or anything on our, our bigger projects. So I usually know what the, what our priority is for what we want to push. And obviously, to start the year, Big Red was a big one for us. That's why like every week I try to have something on that. One of the big things is just our company culture. I'm constantly pushing our, our work anniversaries, and getting those out there, giving our employees recognition for, being here. We've got people who've been here longer than I've been alive. So I always want to make sure they're in the spotlight for that. So a lot of those things, those I can plan because I know when they are, because I've got the whole spreadsheet of when everyone started.
Right.
But as far as, I might just be watching something and see, a reference to something that I saw recently in the field or a product of ours, and I'll immediately, Canva is what I use for a lot of my creation. So I'll immediately, create something with that and then send it to Cooper maybe the night before, and then say like, hey, you want to do this tomorrow? You want to do this Friday? There are some things we have ahead of time, but a lot of times it's kind of on the fly, like, hey, let's get this out right now. And then, whenever there's a bigger priority, whether it's the mobile surveillance trailer or if it's a new product, we, kind of focus on that for a little bit. But
yeah, I 100% agree with Canva. I think that that's one that if you are running your own business 100%, or if you're in your business and you want to do any marketing for them, or they're asking you to do marketing, Canva is the best $12 a month that I spend. Everything you see from the Security Today podcast is built in Canva.
Oh, and that's the thing. They're still developing a lot of the AI tools on that, so it really isn't even at full potential right now. But what they have on there, for anyone who doesn't know Canva, like he said, it's I think $12.99 a month for the Canva Pro. And like a lot of the stuff you see out there is most likely people using Canva. If you want to take the background out of an image, that's Canva. If you need, to come up with a specific template for an employee work anniversary, or, a business presentation, a pitch, anything like that, Canva probably already has a template, and all you have to do is upload your own, text to it or your own photos. It's incredibly easy to use, and it's you're stealing it at that price compared to comparable programs. I do a lot with Canva, though. I don't have any very high-end video editing software. I use CapCut, actually, for that, which that's another thing. CapCut is free for most of the features on there. And I want to say they're partnered with TikTok, or there's some kind of relationship there. I really just use it for the video editing. And also iMovie. If it's just something bare bones I need to do on it, I'll use that, which you can download for free right on any Apple device. At least kind of the bare bones version of it. But those three, I accomplish most of what I do on those, and Canva being the big one, probably 95% of it. And we touched on humor, and what's appropriate and what's not. And realistically, for anyone who's just trying to get started in marketing, for their company, it doesn't necessarily have to be funny. It doesn't have to be over the top. It just has to be authentic. That's the big thing, because there's 1,000 companies out there, more than 1,000. There's thousands of companies out there selling pretty similar products, pretty similar price points, and what people are buying when they buy a product is you and your company, and there has to be some kind of trust there, and they have to like you. So getting authentic content out there that's number one. It doesn't have to be funny. It just has to be authentic, and that would be my biggest piece of advice for anyone just trying to get started with it. Even if the first post is a group picture of you and your team. If you start with, work anniversary, start with, giving your employees recognition for hard work. One of your technicians does an impressive install, or you do an impressive install. If it's a one-man op, take a picture of it. If, assuming your client's okay with it, being posted, take a picture of it, drop your logo down on, one of the corners of it, post some, general information about the product and the solution. If your client's open to it, get a picture of you with them. Like we just took the one outside, Meals on Wheels in, Syracuse here the other day. And at the same time, Cooper, also announced that we were going to be making a donation to him. Like that post was awesome. We had a ton of impressions on it, a ton of engagement. And all that was, a quick paragraph and, a few pictures. And anyone can do that. It's just, wanting to and taking the time to do it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that you also noted a really good kind of rule to live by, and that is if you're taking pictures of anything on site, to make sure that number one, you're asking the client if you can post it, and number two, if you're posting anything on site, just having some sort of a little bit of operational security within your photos, making sure that like anything labeled isn't telling anybody who's looking at that photo where door 001 is, instead of it saying front door east side River Street, like just keeping up with that a little bit, especially when it comes to installs. But posting installations that you've done or that your team has done, that is part of the authenticity that I think people are looking for. They want to see a business that does that, because how many like you said, thousands of businesses. How many scam businesses are there that they just have these standard photos or no photos at all, really? They're just, you're looking them up on your phone and they've got nothing there to show. So when you build that authenticity, you're not just building you're not just building a portfolio for your company to kind of showcase your company, but you're building that trust with potential clients. And I'm sure that's exactly how you've gotten some of your big red, is that they carry that, and I already knew of them because I've seen them, or I see them through the week, or I see them through the month. It doesn't have to be daily, it doesn't have to be hourly or anything like that, but posting just, at least monthly or bi-monthly, to get 2 times a month, to get just your company out there so that people can see it. That's a wonderful approach to building your company.
Yeah, and that's the thing, especially, you see a lot of, and Benji pointed this out, and I think he was talking about starting a series on this, but, the companies that use AI to generate all their images online, and you see all these ones who, I applaud them for trying, I applaud them for having a digital presence. But, you have to use AI for what it is. And right now it's a tool, but it's not going to, in terms of marketing, it can't be the only thing you do, because you see these ones that, companies that they post a locksmith, fixing a lock with the complete wrong tools. He's sticking a power drill into the lock, all kinds of just wacky stuff you can see on there. Like, if you're proud of your work, which you should be, and if you're not proud of it, that's a whole nother, can of worms there. But if you're proud of your work, that's free content right there. You don't have to do anything with the AI, and that is authentic. And what you mentioned about OPSEC there, Canva can also help with that, because when you take the pictures, if you don't have to get this special frame to get any identifying information out of it, take it and then just erase it in Canva. If it shows a door tag on there, you can use the magic eraser tool and literally just erase it, and it will fill in. It'll even kind of match the wood grain on the door if it's a wooden door. It's a pretty neat tool. And there are a lot of times where I'll take out anything in it that's identifying. Like, almost every post I put out there, you would never be able to tell what it is unless it's a big banner there and they want it to be known. And but otherwise, all that's coming out. The geolocation gets turned off on it. All important stuff for sure. So.
Yeah, 100%. And you're right. There's kind of that dual, approach to when you're posting things that are installations on site. Like you said, if it's a big banner and they want that there are clients, and all you have to do is approach them and be like, hey, I would love to share from a social media perspective what I've done for you and how it's helping you, because they're going to think to themselves, well, I would love for more people to see my printing company or my brewery or whatever. Yeah, whatever you're putting it in. So that there is definitely room for that too, and I would be encouraging for people who are out there to be brave enough to be like, hey, I'm going to ask this client if they want to do like a joined post on some of my social media outlets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times, if you're trying to grow your digital presence too, you should be asking, after an installation, whether, I don't know if it's the technician, salesperson, I mean, you should be asking for, them to leave a review, of their experience as well, whether it's on Google or another platform. And that could also be the time where you maybe, again, it doesn't have to be the technician, could be a salesperson, snap a picture with the client, maybe get a picture of the building with their sign there, and then one of the devices, maybe there's one that's got a camera in it and also, the name of the company. It's all you got to do is ask, and the worst they can do is say no. So
yeah. And if you're doing, I know that we've done at Sprinter, we've had it where we've done a big install or it's a bigger project and we want to highlight it because it's the vertical that we want to get into or something like that. And we've even offered them at that big of a project, we'll say, hey, we'll give you a media discount, we'll take some off the top if you're okay with us coming in and, maybe shooting a little footage while we put it in and this and that and the other. And they love it, man.
We're doing something, we're basically doing exactly that. I can't say too much about it yet here, but in the next,
sure.
in the next month, we are going to be shooting one on a similar arrangement like that. And there are, a lot of people who, if you're a dealer and you offer someone maybe like, hey, we'd love to do a shoot there if it was a bigger project, something that, you've taken a lot of pride in, maybe you offer them, a discount or, free month of monitoring to, get in there and shoot that. I mean, it's realistically, it's pretty cheap content that could go a very long way depending on the business. If it's a business that dwarfs yours, that has a huge name and has a huge network, that could be very beneficial for you.
Yeah.
So.
Or if it's local,
Exactly.
like there's local areas that stick really tight. If they start seeing that, that school or that coffee shop used you, they're going to be like, oh, okay, that's a
Oh,
layer of
yeah.
trust that you get into. And so,
Absolutely. Schools are a huge one. So that's
yeah.
yeah, that's a no-brainer.
So this is a great question for you too, because you've kind of grown up in a couple of different industries from a marketing perspective.
Got a
But
colorful
how
background.
would yeah, how would you see marketing differ from our industry in security than others? Like, are there things that you can comparably look at and think, oh, we need to do more of this because this hits in security, while this isn't going to necessarily, take off?
So one thing I noticed in the the now famous coffee break with Jake, there seems to be really realistically two extremes in security. There's dealers who invested tens of thousands of dollars into a third party agency to do all their marketing, and they've gotten no leads from it, or people who don't do any marketing and it's been basically word of mouth, referrals, repeat business. But if you're listening in the coffee break there, you'll find that the people who are reporting a lot of success in marketing were the ones who said, yeah, I hired this young kid right out of college who's good with social media, and he's gotten us a ton of leads, and he's kind of just run with it and established us online, and that's what's really taking off right now. And I have no doubt there's third-party marketing agencies out there who are killing it for some of the the bigger security companies. But for a smaller dealer or even a medium-sized dealer, I don't know. It does not seem worth the investment when, anyone in your building can likely, without very mumuch training, if any, can pick up the social. A lot of them might already have social media. Got to pick whoever's best at it. It's like in the movie Inglourious Bastards. He knows the third most Italian. Pick whoever knows the most social media, and give them a title bump, something, and have them run with it for you. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's the owner. But someone's got to run with it. I think compared to other industries, I don't know if third parties have quite figured out effective marketing and security yet, because it is something that historically has been kind of conservative. And I think that is changing too. I mean, obviously we've had a lot of success with our edgier posts anyway. But I think compared to automotive, where a lot of our marketing was done by GM or done by third parties, and I think with security, it's got to be a little bit more authentic.
Yeah, I think what you lose when you're hiring a third party is that authenticity, because if I'm going to trust you with something as, vulnerable or sacred as the security to my business or my home, I want to know that I'm trusting you. And if this guy over here who is just marketing and, he doesn't know how to turn the doorknob at home, how am I going to I'm going to get that through the marketing that I'm seeing and that I'm hearing.
Right.
I'm going to catch that vibe. And so that's an excellent point.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, a lot of these agencies, a lot of them are using AI tools or, some kind of clip art, and that's why you see a lot of these websites, you can tell they've probably paid a third party to do it, because you see all these AI generated images on there, and it's just, you always want to come off like what you're installing, what you're selling, and you look like the opposite of an expert when you have something on your website that shows, a technician using the wrong tools for a job. And I think it's a lot easier for a third party to use AI to make, like an ad of someone buying a car. But, an alarm system is a lot more technical than that. Like, there's a lot of things that aren't common knowledge there. So you see a lot of these just wacky images generated by, third parties and AI. Even I've experimented a little bit with like Bing's AI image generator, and some of the stuff it comes up with for access control or cameras are just, it's completely wonky.
Outrageous.
So yeah, I think it's all realistically, I think it should always be in-house when possible.
Yeah. So what is Eastern Security Services' most sold product? Like, what do you guys like? What's your bread and butter?
So for me, it's obviously, I also do installations. I'd say most of the installations I'm on are usually access control or video. And, to be fair, though, since we have been in business since 1976, I would have to guess the majority of our accounts are, intrusion systems. But lately, I believe most of the new systems we're putting in are either access control, video, or both with intrusion. We really try to sell a comprehensive layered solution, since that is what is best to protect your facility. we work a lot with alarm.com, which, as a platform, it's incredible because it's got a very easy to use, app and, web platform for anyone. Like even my grandmother, I'm, going to be working with her to get her set up on it, and she's in her 80s, and, she's going to figure it out. I mean, it's very easy to use.
Yes.
But you can have, all of those services hosted right on alarm.com, and you can manage it all right from one app. So we really try to push the full layered approach. And I think having been in business for so long, we have, picked up so many incredible technology partners over the years. So we have something for everyone, with any need or any budget, which is really incredible to be able to say we're not, limited by just like, oh, this is all we do. But I would say right now, video and access probably video, I would say would have to be the number one, between all the video systems we're putting in, for residential and commercial. And then also, the mobile surveillance trailers, the video monitoring, which that's definitely the thing. But
Yeah. And, the Bid2Bank series that I've done is kind of like this ongoing experiment. I feel like in 20 years I'll have enough data to like publish something with it, because it's looking at all of these different businesses. And just like you said, the businesses that I feel are the most successful, or that do the most business overall on the timeline, I guess you would say, are those companies that have expanded themselves into multiple avenues of security. Like you said, not just doing one thing. That kind of seems to be a little bit of the locksmith's downfall, is he turns keys and he builds master systems, and he'll hang a door, but you hand him a camera and he pushes you down the road. I've seen a lot of that. But when companies start to say, oh, we do access control and a little bit of video, but they start to expand into automation, or they start to expand into intrusion detection, it's then that you start to see these companies become really robust, really big players or good players. They don't have to necessarily be huge, but they're strong and they're rooted in the communities that they're in. That comes with being able to solve the solutions, because when you're out there on the job site and you're putting in an access control door and they've got 12 cameras down and they're like, hey, can you look at this too? And you can say, yeah, we can look at that. Or they're like, hey, this key is sticking in this lock or something like that. And you say, hey, yeah, I can look at that. Right. Then that's when you become that next level player. Now, from the standpoint of some of the marketing, the digital marketing that you're doing, a lot of that is expanding your network for the company, in the means of you're putting it out there, and maybe other companies or other businesses are seeing it and they're reaching out, or you're building strong ties with other security players that now need assistance, or they know somebody in your area, and that kind of all works together. Does Eastern Security, do you guys do ads though, from that standpoint?
No, the only ads we put out are the ones you see on social media. Every now and then we will promote one of them. I've promoted several on TikTok recently, just because that's, one of our newer platforms that we're growing, same as Instagram. Who knows what's going to actually happen with TikTok? So, I'm not investing too heavily in that one. Well, but we have, promoted quite a bit.
I hope it shuts down, by the way. From a security professional.
Yeah, no, there's a lot there. I mean, it's one of those things that, I mean, I think like Blink Cameras, has a channel, or not channel, account. Honestly, TikTok is my weakest platform that I know the least about. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but if there's any kind of audience we have on there, and there are a lot of our partners are on TikTok as well. So if they shut it down, we'll be just fine. I'll roll with the other ones, but while it's still up and running here, that's what we put a little bit of time into. For funny videos, it's great to post. Like a lot of the big red ones have done pretty well in there. I got totally sidetracked on TikTok here.
No, you're good. I was gonna say, if they shut it down, we might save our youth.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing. Absolutely.
I've got opinions on TikTok.
I guess that's kind of
important. I understand from a marketing perspective, if you're trying to reach, all these different times, just don't let them read your text messages.
No, yeah, exactly. But that's we've promoted quite a bit over the years. Even before my time on Facebook, that was the one they typically promote on, and we've boosted a few on LinkedIn. With anyone who looks into boosting a LinkedIn post, they are very restrictive on what you can actually boost on there. Like when we boosted our giveaway that we did on the Yeti cooler, because we had, I think it was because we had a dollar amount listed in there, and we said, oh, this is a $400 cooler or $500 cooler. It took that as gambling related, and it didn't let us boost it. So we had to edit this thing like 6 or 7 times before it let us actually promote it. And then at that point,
Interesting.
I think we had such a big following on it already that we didn't even really need to. But yeah, that's, putting out any kind of advertisement, there's always restrictions on it, and it's never a straightforward process. So the social media ones I feel like are probably, easier still, and definitely a lot cheaper than paying for like a TV spot or anything like that, or a billboard, obviously. We have been on a local show here on the radio, actually called, the local show.
That. On your LinkedIn, you posted about that.
Yep, I was on there twice, and when they air that over, the weekends on Saturday and Sunday, then it's on our local, on our, not iHeartRadio, but it's online as well, and then on YouTube. On WSYR.
So let me ask you a question about that. So that's a great way for somebody who's trying to build those roots within a community to get on the local shows. Yeah. What does that approach even look like? Do you just cold call, or how's that work?
So they're actually, I met them because I actually did an installation for them. So that's why the first time I was on there, I said it's great to be back and not be on a ladder. So they knew us already. We're right down the street from them. So we already had a relationship there, and they had asked when I did the install about us being, on the show at some point. And this was before I was doing any of our marketing. So I just kind of passed that up the chain and, forgot about it. But they had reached out again to their account executive with us, and then he brought it up. And at that point, this was, last December, which I've been running with the marketing for a little bit, and Cooper asked if I would do it. So. And then nice. I went on. It was my first time being on the radio. Of course, seeing the countdown starting and everything, my hands were starting to shake under the table a little bit. I'm fine with public speaking, but being in a recording studio for some reason made me a little nervous. But no, it went really well. So they invited me back on to do it again. So
yeah, that's the big time, man. I'd be nervous too.
No, they're funny guys. For anyone who hasn't seen those, I shared them on LinkedIn and also YouTube, and it's through Zoe Advertising, so you can find them on LinkedIn. And they're both very funny guys, and we had a good time. So.
Cool. Well, that's really good marketing advice. I feel like that's something that I think a lot of security companies lack. So you just being willing to share that type of things, y'all best be taking notes and getting I say ripe peaches. I like to say that Bid2Banks are this peach grove that you walk through, and there's like 1 or 2 ripe peaches that you can pull from each episode that'll just rock your world. So, but I do want to get to some of the other questions that I know that I was able to get the questions to you, so you were a little bit prepped on them, but
I wanted to know. I'm just winging it. No.
That's what I'm talking about. Radio expert, huh? But so moving from that marketing, that's when you start getting jobs in the door, and you're working on the quoting, the engineering. And so you had reached out to me before this and said that you don't necessarily bid on jobs. That's not the type of clientele you have, which that's totally okay. From a quoting perspective, when you're getting people in the door, are you doing site assessments and then handing them a quote, or are they kind of telling you what they need and you have pre-built packages? What's that look like for you guys?
So just to clarify, we do bid on jobs. It's not a lot. And right now, that's actually another project I'm kind of running with, was getting us all of our information buttoned up with the state so we can start bidding on state contracts. So that's something that we're getting more into now. It's just, so yeah, that's why I didn't have a great answer for those, which I wanted to clarify. But as far as quoting software, and one thing I just want to make abundantly clear is, even though I obviously I'm the face you see a lot of times on social media or podcasts or anything else like that representing the company, but my tenure here is a speck in comparison to the full longevity of the company. So I mean, I'm sure there's probably Word docs and templates here that are older than I am. But basically, as far as our software for quoting, anything like that, it's pre-built templates we've already had over the years that anytime something needs to be changed, we update it. Again, open door atmosphere. If someone has a suggestion to make it more efficient, prettier, we kind of roll with it and update it. Like I just updated our referral flyer the other day that looked like it was last done in 2000. So just little stuff like that we always kind of button up when we can. But yeah, typically I would say the vast majority of the time they're actually going there and doing a site assessment. The only exception would be if it's somewhere we've already been, ahead of time. If it's, just adding on to an existing one, we don't always necessarily go on site, especially, if we know the building pretty well, if we already have a layout and we can kind of walk through, with our contact on the phone, on, where everything's going, and we have, rough ideas for footages and everything like that and equipment. Our salespeople have done this for quite a while. So they're usually, I would say 95% of the time, they're very good at guessing, kind of the labor on it. And if they're not sure, they'll check with either Jason, who's our installation manager, or one of our lead technicians. Hey, I've got, a warehouse, 2 doors of access, it's, 200 square feet. Like, they'll give us the gist of it, and we'll help them come up with like a labor time frame and, equipment if they're not sure. But yeah, typically it's after walking the site, they're coming up with quote. And we've got some pre-built packages, but those are more for residential, like your typical, like 3 doors and a motion. Right. You don't always necessarily need to be on site for, obviously quoting a wireless system, as long as you verify there's power, network, everything. But yeah, for any larger projects, we're trying to get someone on site so they can physically walk it. And the big thing we always harp is take pictures. Because we don't have a dedicated project manager right now. I think Jason, our installation manager, is the closest thing we have to a project manager. But there's one of him, and we're covering not just our 4 cities, but we have jobs in Utica, Albany, Binghamton, Watertown, all over the state. And he can't be everywhere at once. So if we have, one of our salespeople out there, we tell him, take as many pictures as you can, bring it back here, and we'll go over it as a team, and you can get back to him with a fair quote. And that's why one of the things I don't like about bidding is the typical, and we see it all the time on social media with all the fails, is just the typical lowest bidder thing is, people just put out a completely unrealistic bid that they have no intention of actually doing, and then they immediately sub it out and give, the guidelines to, a trunk slammer. And the person might have all the good intentions in the world, but if they see that, I have to get it done in this amount of time, they're going to do it one way or the other. And it's not good work. And when it comes to something that protects life and property, that's not how we roll. So yes, we'll walk the site and we're going to come up with an accurate quote, and it might not be the lowest bid. We obviously, we're competitive, and that's always the goal, is to be competitive. But we do it right. So.
Yeah. That's huge. And especially in our industry. I think you hit the nail right on the head. I promote on this podcast all the time that we're just left of Bang, but we should be held to the responsibility of doctors and policemen. I mean, we're putting in security that is saving lives, or is at least mitigating the destruction of lives, right. So that when something does happen, whether that is from a litigation standpoint, that it goes to the courts and someone's life doesn't get ruined because that video camera was pointing at the ground and not out at the parking lot, so like even the little stuff like that. And so I think that is awesome. That's exactly why I wanted you and Eastern Security on here, because you guys are that model of the security integrator that needs to be out there in the wild, pumping this stuff into our world to make it safer. So Absolutely. Now from that project management standpoint, I know that you answered my question. I was going to ask if you had project managers, but do you feel like in that project management cycle, and you might know this also, being kind of that hybrid guy who's also a technician installing stuff, but what are 2 of the most kind of critical points of that project management to help complete that job, do you feel like?
I would say, I don't know if it's necessarily like a point in time, but just like, what needs to be done is communication. And that goes without saying, but there's no software in the world that's going to replace, good communication and effective follow-up. We have, one of our account executives here, he had a bigger project in Utica. He was driving there every week, almost an hour each way, to sit in on meetings with the GC and the rest of the contracting team, just to make sure that we were constantly in the loop on what was going on. This was a huge project for us, and we did have to follow up a number of times, move things when they got changed, as they always happen on bigger projects. But there's no software in the world that's going to replace a project manager or sales rep actually physically going there on site, or picking up their phone and calling people, which I've worked with a lot of salespeople over the years, and a lot of the younger generation, they don't like making phone calls anymore. Everything's, email, and I'm sorry, a lot of things get lost in email. It's not the same as talking to someone or physically visiting them when possible. So I would say just communication every step of the way along it is one of the biggest parts. And then just the job prep as well, because it's a little better now. And when I started was kind of right during, I would say the COVID era. But, for a while, parts were in short supply. You needed to order, controllers. You were waiting quite a while. Certain readers, you were waiting a while. So making sure, and again, if it means sitting down with a technician, like whoever is actually in the trenches doing it, but sitting down with them and making sure you have the correct equipment for the job. Because the last thing you want to do is send technicians out there for the installation. They go through the box and the parts are wrong. And then you're waiting, you've already got that in your schedule, and you more than likely have another job planned for next week. And they might be waiting for you specifically to finish up your job there before they can move on to their next phase, before they can sheetrock, whatever it is. And there's nothing that, makes you look more unprofessional than having to delay the job because you didn't order the right equipment. Now, it's different if they add something on and you're like, yeah, that was an add-on. We didn't intend on that. But when you have been planning this for months and, all of a sudden you got to delay it back because you didn't order the right stuff, that's crucial, is just the prep in general for it. And I would say, too, when you're preparing for it, when possible, be meeting with your lead technicians ahead of time and kind of mentally prepare them for the job. Because again, it depends on the scale of your company. For, a residential installation, like a smaller residential one, this might not be necessary, but for like a high-end residential or for a larger business, you really got to have someone who's kind of a commander when they go out there, who can kind of guide the other technicians around, who's got a good sense for this. So I'd say the communication and preparation before the installation. And
yeah,
I know, and now I'm obviously getting ahead of it here, but I know you're looking at the customer experience, and my wholehearted opinion, and this is biased, is the installation is the most important part. Because you might have, met with the client, once or twice, maybe all you did was talk to him on the phone. And for a lot of people, there's a good chance that the technicians are the first people who have actually been out there. And it's definitely the first people to just spend a whole day out there, or a whole week, a couple weeks. And if you don't have the right people out there, or if your preparation wasn't suitable, and they're screwing stuff up, or they don't have the right equipment or anything like that, or they just they don't take pride in their work, that's going to tank the whole thing. And that's what they're going to be thinking of when the contract's up, or if they're not on a contract, they might pull the plug on it if they're not happy with the installation. So that's the part. If you're going to nail any aspect of it, it's the installation.
Yeah, I think that is worth pondering for a lot of people who I know are out there in the security world, because I do feel as if that sometimes is looked over. So from your communication standpoint, you were touching on it beautifully, but it's that communication has to run the entirety of the tree, not just up in the branches. It's got to come down the trunk and touch the people who are out there on the job putting stuff in are going to be your first point of your first point of comms if there's a problem, or
Right.
if a problem is going to arise,
Yep.
or if a problem arose 2 days ago. Like that, those are the people who are going to know. And so having that communication run all the way down to the trunk, to the, what is happening on the job, is also going to be kind of that same perspective that you mentioned within the customer experience, that a lot of larger companies that are able to have maybe an admin space with engineers or installation managers or billing and sales and HR and all that other stuff, they like to think that they get that communication with the customer, they win the sale, they get in the meetings about engineering, they present the quote, and then those technicians get out there and maybe the job can go completely south and they never call you again, and you're like, it was good. I don't understand what happened. And it's like, well, you should know that. I like that you pointed out that that's the person that's going to spend the first full day there.
Yeah.
And that's the person that you should be pouring into and investing in, to make sure that they're kind, to make sure that they do good work, to make sure that they feel like they are valued within your company. All of those things are massively important to not only project management, but the customer experience.
Absolutely, and that's why, I mean, for me personally, I don't do anything with our hiring. I don't have like a job, like a profile for like candidates that I'm looking for or anything like that. It's not my department. But for me, I think if you're looking for technicians, we have a very comprehensive new hire training here. So like for me, I came in with no alarm installations experience, but I had telecom and I was pulling cable and working with tools and on ladders, so it was comparable. It was just had to learn the products and the processes. But I would strongly consider anyone with a sales background for sure, because frankly, most installations, there's always going to be some kind of bump, whether it's a really small one or a bigger one that comes up, but you have to have people in the field who know how to communicate that to customers in a tactful way. Or you also have to have people who maybe they see a blind spot on the camera system and, maybe they're trained, a trained salesperson, and you don't even really have to sell it. Just explain it to the customer and be like, hey, personally, I would consider a camera here, just to cover this blind spot. A client is going to take that more seriously coming from a technician than if a salesperson calls to upsell them. So you want to have someone who can talk to people and who's good at talking to people. It's so crucial. And maybe that person even does, like for me, when I do an installation, a lot of times I'm also doing the training afterwards. I'm already there, I'm on site, I've established rapport with that client. Why wouldn't I show them how to add or remove users from the access control, or set up their app so they can view their cameras? It's a no-brainer. And anytime, your person who's already in the field can do that, you're saving time and money, while you can be, meeting with other clients and bringing in new business. It's so huge. So.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, so we're getting to the top of the hour, but I do want to ask a couple more questions. Yep. From the bank standpoint, what are some of the ways that Eastern Security Service invests back within its company? Because that's one of the things that I like to hit on. I like to give the listeners more options than they maybe knew of, I should be investing within my company and not just taking the check or spending it all on the next job.
So there's several ways. Vehicles are a big thing because all of our technicians have a company vehicle, and obviously as we've hired more people, we keep purchasing new vehicles. But then we've got a lot of ones still in the field right now that they need obviously regular maintenance. Some of them sometimes serious maintenance comes up, so we always want to make sure we're on top of that. Because if you can't get to your jobs, you can't install security systems. So our vehicles, our fleet is a huge priority for us. Obviously, bringing in new technicians is a big one for us as well. We have jobs pending that we're just waiting to get into the schedule. So the more technicians we have on the team, the more work we can get done. But training for current technicians is a big one. And right now I've got a room full of guys down the hall from me doing an OSHA 10-hour course. Last week we had a phone come by and we did a training on the IX series. We do a lot of training. One of our guys just got his NICET fire alarm certification. He passed the test. He has to wait to actually get the certification. But as far as I'm concerned, he's certified. I've got my NICET level 1.
Awesome.
They are always willing to make investments in the technicians and expanding our knowledge. But I would say the fleet training and tools too. Like anytime we come up with jobs like, hey, this took twice as long because we didn't have this tool. That's something that we're investing in, which makes me happy as someone who uses the tools. But yeah, I've not run into anything that they've not been willing to invest in if it makes our jobs easier as technicians or allows us to do our jobs more efficiently. So, but that cool. I would say that is the number one thing they've invested in, has been making things more efficient and easier for technicians.
Yeah. Very good. And then the humbling question, which is my favorite question in Bid2Bank because it brings it all together. It's that authentic question, that brings the authenticity to this exact segment. But what is an area or a process that maybe you feel personally that maybe you're soft on or the company's soft on and would like to get better at going into the future?
So we have a lot of paper. We've got a room full of just physical files. And since we've been in business for as long as we have, a lot of our larger accounts that clients who've been with us for a long time, we've got, some of them have multiple folders. A lot of them do. If we're trying to find something on a piece of equipment that we installed a while back, or maybe a section of the building that's on a layout from a while back, sometimes it's quite difficult to find. So we're currently working on, making a lot of this digital. But that, I would say, in some ways, us being, kind of old school is awesome. In other ways, that's definitely room for improvement, is making some of that digital. One thing that we're also looking into kind of similarly to that is, different job management platforms or apps, just to kind of, keep things more organized in one platform as far as, so maybe a technician can take payment in the field. So, the labor hours can be done, based on, geofencing, on the app. And there's a ton of options out there for that right now. And I know our management team has been, doing a lot of research on that. We've had some demos and whatnot, but I'd say how much of our processes are on paper would be our softest point right now. But
yeah, and I feel like that it's almost I mean, it's a headache and it's something that you want to get over, but it's a little bit of a badge, because I feel that companies that have been around for more than 20 years, that those sorts of companies, first of all, excellent job surviving everything, that the economy, the presidents, the pandemic, the whole nine, and you're still here. And that's sometimes a badge. I worked for a company in Kansas City that actually had that exact badge or problem, where it was, file cabinets on file cabinets. So I can understand that's a pretty big hill to climb.
No, absolutely.
As kind of our last question to wrap up the segment, it's the bonus question. And so I would like to know, from your perspective, based on your experience, looking over the entire job, looking over everything from that marketing to the bid to the bank, what do you feel like is the most critical thing to focus on for a company, or maybe for an individual?
So when I worked at Baer Motors there and sold cars, we had a salesperson who not every time, 90% of the time when he sold a vehicle and the customer actually showed up to take delivery of it, he would do a showroom delivery. So he'd actually have the vehicle in the showroom for them, whereas everyone else, they'd pull them up right outside the door, or they'd get them right out of there, try to rush through it as quick as possible. He would do a showroom delivery, and he would roll out this little red carpet that they'd walk on up to, and then he'd take a picture with them shaking their hand. And, he was an absolute powerhouse of a salesman. Usually, one salesperson the year there ended up becoming sales manager. But and that was for a lot of reasons. But one thing that really made him stand out was just that, is that he did something unique that no one else was doing. And I think that was kind of, largely based from a Disney effect training we did. Which, when you go to Disney World, I can't even name one thing, but there's countless ways they go above and beyond. And they call it the Disney effect in this training, just to make it a special experience for you. You're waiting in line on a hot day, and, they bring out people to bring out waters to everyone. You go there for your honeymoon, and you're getting, free desserts everywhere. They do so many things to go above and beyond. And I'm always trying to think of, how we can, have a Disney effect of our own here. And I think, again, I mentioned the installation, but, doing something at some point during the entire process, and more than likely it's on the installation, to go above and beyond, whether it's, the technician, doing the training right there and, making a very, very good impression, with the client. Maybe they give the client a business card, depending on your process. Everyone, not every company that this wouldn't work for, but maybe they give the client a business card and say, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out. Just any way you can go above and beyond and emulate that kind of Disney effect would be, definitely worthwhile.
Yeah.
Do something that makes you stand out anyway, whether it's maybe it's your marketing, maybe you're putting out funny content all the time. Just do something unique to you that everyone remembers you for.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Vinny, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on this segment. I'm sure we'll have you back to talk and hash it up about something else, but I really think that this is going to be a big value to the people who are listening, because that marketing side of things is a little tricky. It is a little difficult when it comes to the small to medium business integrator themselves. And when you're not the powerhouse manufacturer, or you have, $100 million for your marketing budget, how do you get in there and present the Disney effect? So right. I think that a lot of people are going to pull a lot from this podcast. So thanks so much, man, for coming on. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother Baer. I'll see you in ISC.
Yeah, we will be there. Awesome, man. Thanks.
Thank you.